I am going to tell you a story. You'll see in this first slide a picture of my wife and me and my daughter. And we met in Dallas, Texas, where I lived for 5 years. I was a youth minister, and then we moved to Oklahoma City, where I ran a youth camp. And my wife found out that her grandfather, whom she called Papa, Texans call their grandparents Mama and Papa, I'm not sure why, but she found out that he passed away, and he lived in Beaumont, Texas, which is close to Houston. And so we were going to go to his funeral. And we were on our way. It was a very windy day. It was so windy that we were being blown off to the right shoulder of the highway. And as this occurred, I did my best to correct and to stay on the road. And somehow the vehicle lost control, and it flipped in the air 5 times, it crossed the median, and was hit by a tractor-trailer truck. Jill, my wife of 3.5 years, was killed instantly in the wreck. Abby, our daughter, was in the middle back seat, and she was in a good car seat and covered by the grace of God, and she was totally unhurt. Little tiny scratch on her knee. Witnesses say she didn't even cry. It's amazing anybody lived out of that. You'll see on my head, it starts here and goes all the way back, a scar. My skull was fractured. My skull was cracked open, and part of my brain, part of my gray matter was actually on my sleeve, on my leg, witnesses say. Somehow, in an amazingly cool way, there was a man who had never been that way home before. His watch was slow, and he had military medical training to help head injuries. Right guy, right place, right time, right know-how. Sergeant Troy Dick, military Marine sergeant, saw the wreck in his rearview mirror, ran across the highway, tried CPR on Jill, who has already passed away. So then he immediately put baby Abby in her car seat in front of me and told me I needed to stay alive so she wouldn't be orphaned. And then he made a compress out of clothes from my spilled suitcase, which means he put me back together. And then he and the EMTs got me in the rescue helicopter, and they flew me to the nearest hospital in Beaumont, Texas. Christus St. Elizabeth it's called. And the neurosurgeon, whose actual name is Dr. Angel, Ian Angel, put 28 titanium plates and screws inside of my head and repaired me. He rescued me. Miracles kept happening. And they don't set off the metal detector at the airport, in case you're curious. That's a good question. I've been to the airport a few times, and I was wondering that myself. You know, I've told this story really since about 2005. The wreck happened in January of 2002. And lately I started asking, you know, I need to talk to people and say, what does this have to do with you? And so I say, when have you been injured? When have you been hurt? When have you been set back? Recently I was getting my car inspected, getting an oil change, and in the waiting room, I'm just having a conversation with this lady named Susie, and in conversation she says, I just found out my husband's been cheating on me for a couple of years with some lady he met on a business trip flight. I said, oh my gosh, Susie, I'm so sorry. I don't know what to say, but she needs to find healing. She's been injured. She's been hurt badly. She's been betrayed. Do you feel like you've taken 2 steps forward and 1 step back? During my rehab and therapy, I couldn't even stay on one of those 6-foot to-the-ground balance beams. I was definitely taking steps forward and steps back. I couldn't do that. My 6-year-old son can do that. I couldn't do that. You know, there's a quote that says, a setback is a setup for a comeback. Do you need to come back? Maybe at work your boss doesn't like you, or your peers don't like you. Or maybe your business is failing. It's a really bad economy right now. Maybe as a parent, your teenagers won't talk to you. I don't know what your setback is, but maybe you've been set back. Maybe it's physical like mine. Maybe you have a loved one who's dying. I met a girl named Hillary at the YMCA the other day, and she's a leukemia survivor. I mean, really, I'm like, wow, I don't know how the conversation started. People just talk to me about stuff. I don't know, maybe they see the scar on my forehead and so they feel like they can talk to me. It's great. So today I'm here to talk to you about catching a second wind. A second wind in distance running is mysterious, the source of it. How do you catch a second wind? Some doctors and trainers and people think it's caused by endorphins, or some people think it's caused by your lungs or your muscles or psychological. People guess. Well, I'm here this morning to talk about how I caught my second wind in life, how I caught it. There's a picture of me walking again for the first time. That was almost 12 years ago. The how is broken down into 3 W's. The first W, we're going to start with why. I heard said earlier that the why is the source of everything. The why is the driving force. It has to be personal. It's the driver. For me, it's my daughter, Abby. I mentioned that earlier that she was an orphan, so I had to play Mr. Mom. I had to do it all. And I think probably there was murmurs at the daycare when there's a bunch of moms picking up their kids, and then there was me. And you can see in the top picture over there, I'm still very injured in that picture, but I got better after a while. I was raising Abby for a long time by myself, and we had fun together. You may not have known that Superman and Snow White were buddies, but now you know. And you may also not have known that Snow White was about the same size as the dwarfs, and now you know that too. But Abby and I had lots of good times together. And Abby recently, a couple years ago, read my book. And in it, I mentioned that I was frustrated and sad and lonely. And she was shocked to know that. She never knew. Somehow, also by the grace of God, there was a lot of gladness in my face during all of her waking hours. She never knew that I was sad and disappointed and lonely. And there's a chapter in my book called Back to the Twin Bed. And it's all about getting used to being a 30-year-old widower. And, whatever happens has to happen. I knew that she would feed her emotions off of me. And she was my biggest reason for having to come back. Whatever your reason is for coming back, you have to nail it down and keep it in front of you. It has to be your go. The next W is who. You have to have a support system. You might know about, or you might have heard of the guys who climb Mount Everest. They have the natives who help them out, the Sherpas they're called. No one knows the names of the Sherpas, but everybody has them. They carry the loads and set camp for them. We all need to have a support system like Sherpas. I mentioned those in my book as well because I have a chapter where I have 5 or 6 people that write little journal entries of how my car accident affected them and what they did in response. I still meet people probably once a month that say, "Hey, Jason, I heard about your story, and I prayed for you." That's support. If you don't have a support system already, if you don't have family and friends and people that would come and help you during your time of need, you need to get it. And that requires a certain amount of humility to realize that you need help. You need people around you that like you enough to support you. I don't know if you know this, but the giant sequoia trees, the California redwoods, they're like 350 feet tall and 26 feet in diameter, but their roots are shallow. They're shallow but wide, and the roots are intertwined. That kind of is a good symbol, a good representation of how our support system should be. The sequoias, they laugh at storms. They're not worried. They're like the strongest, biggest trees out. But it's because even though their roots are shallow, they're not deep, they're wide and they're locked together. That's like our support system. We got to have lots of friends that will help us out and support us. Are you with me on that? The third W, we have a why and a who, is what. The what is perseverance, is determination. You got to go when you don't feel like it. The Greek word for perseverance is hupomone. I don't expect you to remember that, but I'm a preacher, and so I was forced to learn Greek in seminary. And I say forced, it was hard. It means to keep going under pressure, under weight. And the honest truth is, you get perseverance, you get more stick-to-itness when weight is on you. It's just how it goes. You'll see in the left picture that first walk, January of '02, and there I am completing the Chicago Marathon in October of '04. so about 2.5 years after. And that's my dad, who jumped in at about mile 20, ran the last 6 with me, and he also helped me catch my second wind. Perseverance, determination, keep going. Where are you going to find it? Is it in you? This last slide shows that there's a really good, happy ending to this story. You'll see on the far right, that's my new bride, Christy. We just celebrated our 7-year anniversary. And that was awkward getting set up to start with, because it's really weird to be in your low 30s and be back in the dating game. My friend Dale says, hey, you need to meet Christy. She's really sweet, and she's really pretty, and she's nice. She's a chiropractor. She's great. I go, okay, Dale, if you can find a low-pressure way for us to meet, I'm game, whatever. And so I was doing development fundraising for a local ministry, an organization, and we're stuffing envelopes for a banquet. And in walks this very attractive blonde, and she says, hey, are you still having pain from your injury? Because she'd seen me on this local cable show called Hooked on Health. And I said, sure, I take my meds 4 times a day. She goes, well, I think I can help you. And she hands me one of her chiropractor business cards. Which, by the way, if a guy tried to pull a move like that, that'd be kind of a sleazy pickup line, right? Right? But Christy could do it. And I was like, okay. In my book, I wrote, even if my neck stayed sore, my eyes would not be sore, right? Because I was attracted to Christy for sure, so I start going and seeing her as my new chiropractor. Besides, we were set up in a dating way. Anyway, I start going. I was on meds for like 4.5 years, and after 4 months, I'm off my medicine completely. She's a good chiropractor. Now, the Bible does say a happy heart is good medicine, so I had a good double play going on there. As you can see, it worked out really well. We fell in love. We ended up getting married. We have 2 additions to the family, 2 little boys named Josiah and Tobias, Jojo and Toby, respectively. And so Jojo is 6, and Toby is about 9.5 months. So everything's good. And Abby, who's totally fine, is 13 now, and she has a new mom. Now, I will say this. I have 2 sets of in-laws now. And my Texas in-laws, it's all really, really a sweet deal. It's great. Everybody loves everybody. It's unbelievable. Abby has no earthly or no emotional attachment to her birth mom. Mommy Jill, she calls her. And that's sad, but she has a longing for understanding more about Mommy Jill. So she asks me questions, and I show her pictures and videos and things like that. And Mommy Jill had a voice like an angel, a singing voice. She had a master's in voice performance. She sung she had an opera quality voice. And to this day, Abby has like perfect pitch. She had a genetic pass on there. She certainly didn't get it from me. And so Jill shared with Abby that singing voice. And today, Abby's going to share with us that singing voice. Abby, will you come up here? And Abby's going to sing 1 verse of a song. Come on up here, Abby. There's some stairs.
Check. Oh, good.
I'll stand over here.
Through many dangers, toils, and snares, I have already come. 'Tis grace that brought me safe thus far, and grace will lead me home.
Thanks.